The horse breaks left. It shouldn't have. It was supposed to run straight, into the water, into the trap. But it breaks left, and now one of the hunters has to change course, boots slamming into soft lakeshore mud, lungs already burning, because this hunt has been going for over a mile. He doesn't think, he reacts. He plants his back foot, shoulders a spear that's taller than he is, and throws. The spear travels 20 meters in under a second. It hits. The horse goes down. Around him, the rest of the herd is already at the waterline, penned in by the lake on one side, by his group on the other. The other hunters close in. More spears fly, more animals drop. It is systematic. It is organized. It is, in every meaningful sense of the word, a military operation. And it happened 300,000 years ago. The hunters who did this were not us, but they were close, very close. They were the species that would one day become us. And they were, pound for pound, the most physically dominant hunters that ever walked this planet. Their name is Homo heidelbergensis, and almost nobody knows it. Homo heidelbergensis, pronounced Heidelbergensis, is what scientists call an archaic human, not fully modern, not Neanderthal, something in between, and in many ways, something that exceeded both. They appear in the fossil record around 700,000 years ago. They disappear, or rather transform, around 200,000 years ago. In that half-million-year window, they spread from southern Africa to Western Asia to the forests and plains of Ice Age Europe. The same species, the same body plan, across 3 continents. And what a body. Males stood close to 6 feet tall. They weighed over 100 kilograms, and that wasn't fat. The muscle attachment points on their bones are so pronounced that paleoanthropologists estimate their grip strength was roughly double that of a modern human male. Their leg bones were denser than ours, built for endurance over rough terrain. Their chests were broader, their necks thicker, their brows a solid shelf of bone above deep-set eyes. Some individuals of this species had brains in the modern human range, and yet this species predates modern humans by hundreds of thousands of years. Despite all of this, the direct ancestral link to both Neanderthals and every living human being on Earth, Homo heidelbergensis, gets almost no popular attention. Ask 10 people who they've heard of from human prehistory. You'll get Neanderthals. You'll get Cro-Magnon. Maybe Australopithecus. Almost nobody will say the name that belongs at the top of the list. Part of this is a naming problem. Some researchers call them archaic Homo sapiens. Some split the African and European populations into separate species entirely. The taxonomy has been argued over for decades, but the confusion in the literature doesn't change what the fossils tell us. There was a large-brained, large-bodied, wide-ranging archaic human in the Middle Pleistocene. They were the ancestor of everyone who came after, and they could hunt. To understand what Homo heidelbergensis accomplished, you need to understand the world they were living in, because it was not a world that was waiting around for humans to show up and claim dominance. The cave lion, 25% larger than a modern African lion. It ranged across Europe and Western Asia, and it was not a remnant species clinging to marginal habitat. It was a thriving apex predator in the heart of Homo heidelbergensis territory. The cave bear, 700 kilograms, larger than any bear alive today. It occupied the same cave systems that these humans needed for shelter through Ice Age winters. Pachycrocuta brevirostris, the giant hyena, bigger than a modern lion, capable of crushing bones that no living carnivore could touch. It competed directly with both human hunters and other predators for carcasses across Europe and Asia. And in some of their range, during some of this period, saber-toothed cats, long-lived lineages with canine teeth the length of a human hand. This is the ecosystem. These are the neighbors. Now ask yourself, what kind of creature not only survives in this landscape, but wins? In 1995, in a coal mine near Schöningen, Germany, workers excavating peat deposits found something that rewrote the story of human prehistory. 9 wooden spears. over 300,000 years old, preserved almost perfectly in the waterlogged, oxygen-deprived peat. These are the oldest complete hunting weapons ever found anywhere on Earth. And here's the thing that stopped researchers cold when they examined them. These spears are not simple pointed sticks, they are precision instruments. Each one was carved from the straightest section of a spruce trunk, with the tip hardened and shaped from the densest wood near the base. They average over 2 meters in length, and their center of gravity sits in the front third of the shaft, exactly like a modern competition javelin. That design is not accidental. It is the design of a weapon optimized for throwing. Before this discovery, the dominant assumption in paleoanthropology was that early humans used spears primarily as thrusting weapons, getting up close, driving the point in. The Schöningen Spears demolished that assumption. These were ranged weapons. They could be thrown with accuracy and lethal force from 15 to 20 meters away.
Think about what that changes. A thrust-only spear requires you to get close enough to touch the animal. A throwing spear lets you kill from a distance. It changes the risk equation entirely. It changes how many animals a group can engage at once. It changes, frankly, what becomes huntable. Because from 20 meters out, a lone hunter can reasonably target an animal that would kill him if he got within arm's reach. The horse bones found with these spears were from 13 animals. 9 spears, 13 horses. The kill site geometry shows the animals were driven toward the water, penned, and killed in sequence. This was not scavenging. This was not opportunism. This was a plan executed with weapons against large prey by a group of hunters who knew exactly what they were doing. Here is the part that the popular narrative almost never discusses. What happened at Schöningen required more than physical strength and well-made weapons. It required something that archaeologists are often reluctant to assign to species they categorize as archaic. It required planning, not just, let's go toward the horses. Planning that accounts for landscape. The lake wasn't an accident. The hunters chose this location specifically because it created a natural barrier on one side. Animals driven toward water lose their primary escape option. That is tactical thinking applied to geography. The animals killed represent multiple age and sex classes, not just the slowest or weakest individuals you'd expect. The distribution of cut marks on the bones shows organized butchering at different locations across the site, suggesting different individuals or groups were assigned different carcasses. This level of coordination requires communication, not necessarily language in the modern syntactic sense. That debate remains genuinely open, but something functionally equivalent for the purposes of a planned hunt. Signals, calls, shared understanding of roles. The hunt at Schöningen was not chaos. It was choreography. Think about the last time you were part of a team executing something under pressure. A difficult project, a sports match, a moment of genuine crisis where people had to move together without stopping to explain every decision. That experience, the wordless coordination of a group that knows what it's doing, that capacity has roots that go back at least 300,000 years. The hunting record is extraordinary enough, but it is only half the story. Because Homo Heidelbergensis did not just hunt prey animals, they competed with and displaced the apex predators sharing their range. At multiple cave sites across Europe, archaeologists have found something telling in the stratigraphic layers. Alternating periods of human occupation and carnivore occupation, hyena dens, bear caves, and then, at some point, humans. And after that point, no more hyenas, no more bears. The pattern repeats across different sites in different countries over spans of thousands of years. They moved the predators out, and they stayed. More direct, cut marks on cave bear bones, on cave lion bones. Not the gnaw marks of a scavenger working over an old carcass. Precise butchering marks made with stone tools on fresh bone. Homo heidelbergensis killed these animals and ate them. This is worth sitting with for a moment. A 600-kilogram cave bear, a lion a quarter larger than anything alive today. These were not incidental kills. You don't take those animals by accident. You don't stumble into a territorial confrontation with a cave bear and walk away unless you are very good at organized violence. This wasn't just about food. When you displace an apex predator from a cave system that you then occupy, when you claim the den, you are making a territorial statement. You are telling every other predator in the landscape where the hierarchy stands. Homo Heidelbergensis wasn't surviving at the edge of the predator world. They were competing for the top of it. Here's the paradox that I want you to hold for a moment. We are the direct descendants of this species. Every person alive on Earth today carries the evolutionary inheritance of Homo Heidelbergensis in their body, and yet we are, physically speaking, the weakest humans who have ever existed. Our bones are less dense, our muscles attach less powerfully, our grip is a fraction of theirs. Put a modern human next to one of the hunters at Schöningen, and the comparison is stark. We traded that body for something else, a more efficient metabolism, a longer developmental period that allowed for greater neural complexity, a vocal apparatus that supports the full range of modern language, a social structure that could scale beyond the hunting band. We became less dangerous individually and more dangerous collectively than any species the Earth has ever hosted. The question that keeps me thinking, do we underestimate ourselves because we've forgotten what we came from? When you feel that spike of coordinated focus, the moment a group of people clicks, stops talking, and starts executing, you are running ancient software. Software that coordinated ambush hunts on Ice Age lakes. The architecture hasn't changed, only the application has. Homo heidelbergensis does not appear in the fossil record after roughly 200,000 years ago. At that point, something happens that is worth describing precisely, because it is often framed as a death, and it was not a death. The European populations of Homo heidelbergensis became increasingly cold-adapted, increasingly robust, increasingly distinct from their African relatives. By 200,000 years ago, they were Neanderthals, not a different species that replaced them. Changed. The African populations went a different direction. More gracile features, higher foreheads, the slow emergence of modern behavioral complexity. By 300,000 years ago in Morocco, by 200,000 years ago across sub-Saharan Africa, they were us, not replaced by us, becoming us. Homo heidelbergensis did not go extinct. They became their children. The next time someone casually calls ancient humans primitive, remember what you now know. 300,000 years ago, before writing, before agriculture, before cities, before any of the things we use as proxies for sophistication, a group of hunters stood on a lake shore in what is now Germany. They had coordinated across miles of terrain to drive 13 horses into a kill zone. They were carrying precision throwing weapons they had engineered themselves. Some of them stood 6 feet tall and could break your hand with their grip. They were not primitive. They were our ancestors at their physical peak, doing things with bodies and minds and groups that we have spent the last 10,000 years trying to replicate with tools and technology. We are not the summit of human achievement. We are its heirs, and the inheritance is older and stranger and more powerful than most people ever stop to consider. If that idea does something to you, if it makes you look at your own instincts and capacities differently, then subscribe. There's more of this, much more.